Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing one of my favorite decks of all time test hands, which is actually Lair of Darkness, Fang of Critias. This is probably one of the most unique decks that I've actually built in a long time, and it's really fun to play around with. I've been playing it with for a long time, and it's just an overall fun deck that can summon some really amazing monsters from back in the Waking the Dragons arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! With Doom Dragon and Mirror Force Dragon being the two big boss monsters that you're actually summoning pretty consistently in this deck. And if you don't summon them, you still have the Lair of Darkness engine to be able to fall back on, which is pretty amazing, and you have an artifact engine thrown in here just to sprinkle the salt on top, which is fun. So anyways guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have some awesome rewards you guys, like getting your name shirts for every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So, this is a really crazy deck, like I said before. It's really fun to play around with. You play old school cards like Mirror Force, you play Crush Card in here, you play Eradicator Epidemic. I mean, this deck is just fun. It's very control based, so you might just see in this particular test hand. If you guys want to check out the deck profile, it is down in the description below. But what I was saying was, is you might just see in this particular test hand that the potential that you're going to have for controlling the opponent. You're not going to see any crazy big boards. You're probably going to see a Mirror Force Dragon, hopefully. You're probably going to see maybe a Doom Dragon. But it's just going to basically be explaining to you guys how the deck plays and how you can control the opponent with different trap cards, which is the entire focus of the deck, because you don't see a lot of trap-based decks outside of like this, Paleozoic, and a couple other decks in the meta right now that are just like Altergeist that are in and out from time to time. You don't see that many trap-based decks anymore. They're just few and far between because, to be honest, traps are a little slow, but when they go off, they have insanely and powerful effects. Like, for instance, Mirror Force. Mirror Force is one of the most powerful, was one of the most powerful traps in the entire game that spawned all sorts of different variants. So let's go ahead and do our first test hand and hope for the best. So we're going to go ahead and draw on a Mirror Force. We were just talking about it. So I guess it came out. We got Fang of Critias. So you've already got a Mirror Force Dragon in your hand right there. You have a Lair of Darkness. You have an Arima. And you have a copy of Eradicator. So you have a normal summon. You have a protection that's going to lock your opponent down. That can potentially tribute an opponent's monster. And then you have Fang of Critias as well. So you have a lot of potential. Now, usually, if you're playing a trap-based deck, if you've ever played Paleozoic or you've ever played like Paleo Frogs or anything like that, you know that the best way to play is to go first, because I'm going to explain to you. If you go second in a deck like this and you set your traps going turn 2, like for instance, let's say I just go ahead and draw. Okay, that's fine. I got Tour Guide, I can go off. But let's say it wasn't a Tour Guide that I drew into and it would say Super Polymerization. Yes, that's still pretty good, but I have to wait till turn 4 to resolve my copy of Eradicator Epidemic, and you guys know how duels go nowadays. You need to go first in a deck like this that's a little bit slower because you're trying to get your traps off as fast as possible. So let's go ahead and play it off. This was the card that we drew, so we're going to put that back on the top. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to touch the deck at all in this particular test hand outside of maybe going into the next turn, which it was Tour Guide that was on the top, which I put on the bottom. So you're going to go ahead and you have the copy of Arima in your hand. You have the copy of Lair, which I immediately activate my copy of Lair. Okay, Lair makes everything a dark. It makes stuff like Super Poly insane. It makes stuff that in the deck that you just shouldn't be able to do in this deck. This card is insane. So now you had the copy of Fang of Critias and Mirror Force, which if you guys don't know what Fang of Critias does, we're going to go ahead and go over that one. This card lets you send a trap card from your hand or your field to the graveyard, and that is listed on a fusion monster, and then special summon that monster, and only special summon that monster with the Fang of Critias using that trap card and this card. So for instance, I would activate the Fang of Critias, my opponent would be like, oh, that's a cool old card, and I'd be like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, Mirror Force, and I'm going to summon Mirror Force Dragon. So Mirror Force Dragon is a really good, awesome boss monster in this deck that you have backup potential with this card, because what it does is it's such a powerful, insane card that what it does is it must be special summon with the effect of Fang of Critias using Mirror Force, and when a monster's you control is targeted for an attack or by an opponent's card effect, then you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. This board wipes all their spells and traps, all their back row, and is why Fang of Critias is actually my favorite of all of the dragon. I don't know. I love them all, especially, but I lean a little bit heavier towards Eremos in a lot of the different decks that I build, but probably Critias because of the awesome fusion monsters that it makes. So then all you're going to be able to do with this particular hand is you have the copy of Eradicator that you can set. And then this card in your hand as well is pretty good because it lets you tribute a dark monster to draw a card, or if it's the only card, if you tribute another dark monster, then you have other plays. I would probably save this in my hand just to kind of hold out because you have the copy of Critias, or you could bait the opponent if they don't read the Critias and you normal summon out the copy of Arima, then you can bait them in with the Arima because they'll go, oh, I don't have to attack into the Mirror Force Dragon, because a lot of people, you don't know how they are. They don't read a lot of the cards. Okay, it just happens. It's going to happen when you play a card that's kind of out there like Mirror Force Dragon. They might not read it right off the bat. They might just attack into it and not realize, or attack into Arima. And then this card says when a monster you control is targeted for an attack, you destroy all monsters they control. You can win a duel single-handedly off of just that effect, which is pretty cool. So if you pass turn and you let your opponent go, and they summon any monster that has 25 or more 100 attack, you have the Lair of Darkness on your side of the field and the Eradicator Epidemic, which makes it really crazy, because Eradicator Epidemic, you can call spells, which is what I usually call. So if they synchro, they link, they do anything that can be tributed, this is like a kaiju at that point, because what it does is you have the copy of Lair that makes everything a dark, and then once per turn, if you attribute a monsters you control to activate a card effect, you contribute one dark monster your opponent controls as if you controlled it. So that's really cool. So if I can contribute my opponent's monster that they have that could potentially out my board to get rid of it. So this is not a negation, but it's a removal card that also locks all the spells or all the traps out, because by then I should have the knowledge to be able to know what they have. Because if they're playing Altergeist, I'll call traps. If they're playing something that's a pendulum-based deck, I'll call spells, so I can lock them down. Like I explained in the deck profile, if you guys haven't checked that out, you definitely should. In the deck profile, I explained with this card, I won an ARG because I was playing against Endymion back in the day. It's been about a year ago or so. But what I did was I activated this and blew up the scales because he didn't have the scales anymore because I called spell. And it says 25 or more under attack, you can call spells or trap. You check your opponent's hand and all the cards they control and all the cards they draw until the end of the third turn. So if he had a spell at the beginning of the turn, it would pop it. So it's kind of cool. So that's it pretty much for that particular hand. But if we draw into the next hand or next card, we're going to draw on a tour guide. Now let me go ahead and show you. You're locking your opponent out of spells. They can't attack you. And then you normal summon out tour guide to your side of the field. And then your tour guide will resolve and you will get out a copy of either Lith or a Sangin, depending on which one you want. So I would probably grab the copy of Lith, Lady of Lament. Lith is going to help you out a little bit more because you can instantly tribute her on your side of the field, and you can lock your opponent out of special summoning. You might be wondering how, and I'm going to show you how. So you already have, let me go ahead and move those. You don't want, when you're going through your deck, this is just something that I do. I go ahead and make sure that my cards are not sticking together, like how my double Mirror Force is stuck together. Put them in different areas in the deck. So let's go ahead and say we have a Sanctum in hand, or we have a Sanctum, we reveal Sanctum, Sanctum, and we reveal Sanctum. Okay, we reveal all three of these Sanctums. Or your opponent's playing a deck that has smaller monsters in their deck. You can also reveal something like Crush Card, depending on if you can read the deck. And if you reveal Crush Card, you contribute the copy of Tour Guide to be able to destroy all monsters that have 1,000 or 1,500 less attack that are on their field or in their hand that have 1,500 more attack, which is really cool too. So you reveal all three of these copies of Sanctum, and then you'd immediately set a copy of Sanctum to your side of the field, because the copy of Lith says if this card is normal summon, it becomes 1,000, and then you contribute a dark monster to reveal 3 of your normal traps in your deck, and your opponent randomly chooses one of them. Now, I probably would have attributed my copy of Tour Guide, or I would attribute an opponent's monster to do this, so you could have kept your field a little bit wider, but at the same time, you have a big boss monster, you're locking them out of spells, next turn you're going to lock them out of their extra deck. They did get 1 token off the copy of Eradicator, so they would have 1 token, but that's it, that they would pretty much have on their side of the field. And if they do attack into you, you do have you have the copy of Mirror Force Dragon that you're going to lock them out with, which is pretty cool. And then during their next turn, you just activate Sanctum, you special summon out Scythe, and it's like, hey, now you can't special summon from extra deck, you're locked out of spells. And you can't attack me either, because if you attack this or target a monster on my side of the field, then guess what? This goes off and destroys your entire field. So that's pretty much how the mega potential, that's probably one of the best hands that you can potentially do. If you did tribute the Arima though, I will give you this too. You can get a negation on your side of the field as well, because you do have the number 75 Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, which is why I threw this in the deck. You can overlay these like this and go in a Gossip Shadow as a 2600 wall that can make a negation on your side of the field, which is pretty helpful to give you an additional negation where both players will just draw a card instead of the effect going off. So you have potential there. So let's go ahead and go into the next test hand, and that's if you didn't tribute the Lith and you treated like Arima or your opponent's monster. It just kind of depends. Like, as you guys can tell, I do a lot of Lair of Darkness decks on the side. Like, they don't always make it to the channel, but this is like one of, like, Shaddolls, and this is like two of my favorite engines. Like, I've made Lair of Darkness Fang of Critias, I've made Lair of Darkness Infernoids, I've made Lair of Darkness Dark Lords, I tried to make Lair of Darkness Blackwings, which was not very good because you don't tribute enough in the deck. I've made Lair of Darkness Heretics. I mean, this deck is probably, like, Lair is like one of my favorite engines that you can throw in a deck, because you literally just throw in 3 Lair, 2 copies of the Darkest Diabolos, and then 3 Arima, and you're okay. But if you play a bunch of traps in the deck or stuff that tributes, you can throw in 3 Lith too. I've even made Lair of Darkness Burning Abyss at one point, and that was fun. So let's go ahead and cut the deck really quick and see what we can do for another test hand. So we're going to go ahead and draw into an Eradicator, Mirror Force, see, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes they'll stick together. Another copy of Arima, and a copy of Artifact Sanctum. So you might be looking at this hand and going, ew, that looks really bad. It really isn't. It really is not that bad, because you do have potential with this hand. A lot of potential. That you see, oh my god, you drew 4 traps, and you didn't draw Fang of Critias. That's not good. Well, it is, because here's what it is. You can go ahead and discard the copy of Arima, and you're like, wait, you're getting rid of your only monster. No, I'm not. I have the copy of Sanctum in my hand, because if I had the Sanctum in my hand, I can get a Scythe, and if they pop this, then they can't attack me anyways, and I have the copy of Mirror Force that they're going to attack into anyways if they swing. So they're going to lose their monsters anyways, and then I have Eradicator with the copy of Arima that's going to get me a Lair, and when I get Lair, I can tribute their monsters. So you have, again, potential just with this hand. Like, there's never usually a really dead hand in this deck, and, like, I haven't encountered very many dead hands when I play this particular variant, and it's why I've stuck with this for like a year. Since Lair came out, I've been playing this deck, this variant. So what you're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and activate Lair, and then you're going to go ahead and set 4 and pass. Now that looks to me a lot like Evilsworn. Like, this could be an Ophion, and then you're passing. It's a very similar to what that used to be when you used to play with that deck. So let's go ahead and say that your opponent summons a monster with 2,500 or more attack. You have the copy of Eradicator. You can get rid of that one monster because you can tribute it. Yes, they'll get a token during the end phase, but that's fine. It's 1,000. I can deal with that. They can't touch the extra deck because I'm just going to activate my copy of Artifact Sanctum wherever it is. I'm going to activate copy of Artifact Sanctum. If they summon anything from the extract, I'm going to let them hit the extract like one time to get a monster with 2,500 or more with this. But if they can't, or if I want to hold it, I can just set this and I don't give them the token. And I just immediately at the beginning of the turn throw out a copy of Scythe. And it's at 22. And they're not going to get past this usually if they can't touch the extra deck. Normally. In normal situations, they usually can't. There are some decks like Dragon Link this is really powerful against. Like, in Dinosaurs, this is really powerful against. There's a lot of decks that this is super powerful against in today's meta because they can't get past it. And then you have the Mirror Forces that are really kind of a surprise card against your opponent. And then you also have the Eradicator in back row. So if they do summon something that's 2,500 or more with the Scythe on field, you can just tribute it and get rid of all their spells or all their traps, whichever one you want. If they swing into you, if they get past the Eradicator and they summon another one, you have double Mirror Force. Come on, you're fine. And then you draw on your next turn and you get Crush Card. Now, this is where it starts to kind of brick because you still have to ride the Scythe for a little bit, but that's fine because I still have the double Mirror Force and I'm locking them down. So if I draw into the next turn, I get Lith. Use Lith, tribute an opponent's monster, because now I'm removing your cards and I'm getting tokens, and I'm going to get to set the trap I want, not what I don't need. So it's really cool, and I don't give you a random token. So that's pretty much how the deck runs. Let's go ahead and do one more, and I'll show you guys how the deck plays one more time. I'm going to hopefully do some live duels with this. Savannah's not going to have fun playing against this because Lair of Darkness. That's all I got to say. she's just not. It's just not going to be fun. But I think it would be fun to play this maybe against Toons or Harpies or something. You guys let me know down below what a cool matchup would be against Lair of Darkness, because I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to have to think about it. What would be a cool matchup against Lair? Because like I try and do weird ones when I do live duels, like what could have happened in the series a lot of times, unless it's like a weird no character played it. Like with Harpies, I played against Toons. I thought that was kind of cool because it's like Mai versus Pegasus. So let's go ahead and do one more and see what we can actually do. Let's see what we can do with this one. So we're going to go ahead and draw into Sanctum. We're fine. We have locked our opponent out. We got Eradicator, we got Lith, Arima, and a copy of Arima. Okay, so this is where you kind of run into a little bit of an issue when you draw multiple normal summons. You have 2 normal summons in your hand, essentially, because you're going to discard with the Arima. But that's fine, because the Lith is a quick effect. So it can get rid of an opponent's monster during their turn and interrupt them midway through. Like if they summon a copy of, say, Anaconda, or the pieces that you think they're going to summon Anaconda to get out a copy of Dragoons, then you can just tribute off the copy with Lith to be able to get rid of the pieces before they even get to Anaconda, which is kind of cool. Or if you see a choke point, you can just get rid of it and be like, Lith effect, tribute. So, and then you get a card. You get a +1 because you tributed their card to get 1 for you. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Arima and discard this from our hand. Always grab Lair as quickly as possible. Lair is very important for this deck. You need to get to it as quickly as possible. Go ahead and shuffle the deck. Or, I mean, you have Scythe in hand, too. I mean, you have the copy of... You have Sanctum, so it doesn't really matter. They're not going to go into extra deck, so, I mean, you just use this at their first normal summon, and it's fine. So, you go ahead and normal summon Lith, activate Lair, set this, and set this. And you're fine, because now at this point, you have the copy of Scythe that you can go Scythe here, hit him with a copy of Scythe right here, because it lets you special summon the artifact from your deck. And then once you summon the artifact in the deck, they can't go into the extra deck. And then you tribute a monster, or you tribute a card on their side of the field, or any card that you want to get rid of. And you can grab whatever you feel like you need to set to your side of the field. I mean, it's just whatever you need, because this card lets you randomly choose 1, and then you set it to your side of the field, and then you shuffle the rest back in the deck. So let's say that I want to really like bait my opponent and be like, yeah, you don't want to attack into me. I can reveal 3 Mirror Forces and then set a Mirror Force, and then they have to play around it just to get in for a hit, which is still pretty good, because they're going to be like, oh, I have to deal with that in order to swing, because they do have a Mirror Force against me. I have to deal with this. And yes, it's old school, but you know, sometimes the old school cards, they still work. I mean, they didn't lose their text just because it's 2021 or 2020 now. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, it came out in 2002 and it's still decent. I mean, it's not bad. And I mean, you have to play it for the combo with, to get Mirror Force Dragon out, which is why I play it in the deck at all. But you have the copy of Eradicator. You can only tribute 1 monster on your opponent's side of the field, so that's really important with a copy of Lair. But it does turn everything dark, so it can kind of mess up strategies there. And you also have the copy of Mirror Force, so you still have 1 more play that you can kind of stop your opponent. But if they do board wipe you, and they do get rid of both of these, and you go next turn, you still have the Arima in hand. So we're going to go ahead and draw. We get Eradicator, or not Eradicator, but we get Crush Card. You have this set on your side of the field, and now you can normal summon out the copy of Arima, and here's where the neat thing is. Arima's effect is that you can tribute 1 dark monster to draw a card, or if you tribute a dark monster other than this card to activate its effects, you get to add a dark monster with 2,000 or more defense from your deck to your hand. So guess what? You tribute an opponent's monster, any card that they got. You've already got rid of 1. This was a normal summon. You have Lair, okay? You go ahead and activate this effect, and you tribute an opponent's monster, and you add Darkest Diabolos. Now, here's where the neat thing is, okay? So seeing as how you just tributed, and you just added this from your deck to your hand, the way I understand the ruling is you would go ahead and special summon this. Because the way that it works, and it's always worked on, like, when I play on, oh my goodness, what is it? Yugioh Pro. When I play on Yugioh Pro, it was not coming to me. The word was not coming to me. When I play on Yugioh Pro, it just instantly hits the field because I just tributed, and this recognizes that I just tributed and it came to my hand. So I can then special summon out the copy of Darkest Diabolos from my hand, and I have these two big monsters that I just searched, which is pretty cool. Then you have the copy of the Crush card that you can set, and you have the copy of Darkest Diabolos that can swing, and you have the copy of Arima that can swing, and if your opponent's playing a very spell or trap heavy deck, you still have the copy of Eradicator that can tribute an opponent's monster if you didn't do this, and you could just tribute an opponent's monster, or you can tribute this to get rid of your opponent's cards, and then it'll come back later when you tribute another card, which is still pretty cool. And then during your end phase, you'll also get a token because you did tribute a card, which is pretty cool as well. So that's pretty much how the deck works. We didn't get out Doom, but that's totally cool. If you draw for turn, you're going to get that, and then you get Fang, and then you can go with these two if you didn't use it, and then you can summon out your copy. It takes a little bit, and it's kind of random because there's not a searcher in this game for Fang of Critias. I wish there was, but there's not, and I really wish that later on they might give us some support for this, to give us a little bit, because this is kind of like a one-of weird card in the deck, along with the Mirror Force and the copy of Crush card. So basically these three are how you get your two big boss monsters on your side of the field as quickly as possible. And basically you're controlling the board until you can get either these out or your copy of Darkest Diabolos, or you can link climb high enough with the tokens to be able to deal with your opponent's plays. So that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy watching this test hand video. I hope I explained enough of the deck to you guys because it's fun. I highly recommend it. It's kind of a weird budget actually aspect to this deck. Like, it's not super expensive to play this variant because these have been printed as commons. I just like the ultra rare ones. I'd love to get secret rare ones eventually, but it's really fun to play around with, and it's just weird. Like, and you guys know how I am. I like weird decks, so that's why I built this one. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad. Definitely tell me what you think of this test hand down in the comments down below, and definitely hit the bell down there so you guys can become part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.